Previously, the group faces a monstrous infected creature in a dark area, with the blue-haired survivor fighting bravely, and Zhuo Tianchen defeats a high-level infected, reclaiming a meteorite crystal. Zhuo Tianchen, recognized as Hu Feng, the Fist Emperor, returns to the group's base where tensions escalate with the arrival of the Zhao family, led by Li Wuyi, who declares a vendetta against him. Every survival story has a turning point where the prey stops running and decides to fight back. But our guy isn't just fighting. He's correcting a decade-old mistake. And Li screams insults, acting like he owns the place. His terrified allies scramble to de-escalate, desperate to prevent a total catastrophe. Zhuo Tianchen stares at the five foes, remembering exactly how this went down before. He watches the loudmouth posture, knowing that ego is just a prologue to disaster. Cute routine. When the brawler suggests murdering everyone for sport, Zhao Lin just smirks his approval. It is nauseating to watch dead men walking act like legends. He finally intercedes to set the record straight. With a sneer of inherited privilege, this boss mocks our guy's status. He thinks he owns the city, oblivious that he is lecturing a man who watched his funeral a decade ago. And cold rage flickers in our guy's eyes as he mentions saving them once. The fool laughs it off like it's nothing, calling such defiance a death wish. Imagine being that wrong. The terms are laughable. A severed arm for an apology, plus the women upstairs. It is the kind of arrogant demand you only make when you have absolutely no idea who you're talking to. He draws a hard line, letting them know they have pushed him too far. The brawler steps up, waving his cronies back as if this amateur is worth his time. Background stories highlight a reputation as an underground kickboxing king. It's supposed to be terrifying, but after surviving the real apocalypse, this guy's combat record is basically just a gentle breeze. The fighter demands a kneel, but our guy is busy lighting a cigarette. Nothing says you're a complete waste of time like taking a smoke break during a death match. Bruised by the indifference, the idiot lunges with a lethal, high-speed jab. He commits to the strike, unaware he's already walking into his own grave. Nearby observers recoil, eyes wide as realization hits them. There is an ocean of difference between a typical survivor and a reincarnated master. The room freezes as his fist buries deep into his opponent's chest. The impact ripples outward, shattering the boss's bravado in one messy, explosive movement. The brawler collapses like a pile of laundry, leaving his crew in absolute shock. Watching them process a total system failure is just pure gold. Panic ripples through the room once the big stick is broken. The boss grabs a pistol from the shadows, hands shaking as he finally calculates the real danger. He aims the weapon, struggling to keep his finger steady. The look of terror says it all. The predator just realized he is and always will be. That look is the very last thing that poor predator will ever see. A massive hole rips through the chest of the blonde brawler, yet he stands steady. Zhao Lin lets out a shrill scream while the crowd watches in pure shock. Talk about a rough Tuesday. The gaping cavity quickly knits itself back together with a sickly, glowing light. He offers a crooked grin, clearly enjoying that the kid who lived through the end of the world is finally seeing a monster that just won't stay down. Zhuo Tianchen just narrows his eyes, scanning the carnage with cold, clinical precision. He knows this isn't just some local thug, but a real threat needing his full focus. The regenerating brawler turns away, ordering his trembling companion to retreat and report back. He rambles about the tactical shift now that they're facing two powerful evolvers instead of one, his voice tight with nerves. With a casual flick of his wrist, the wounded fighter suggests they call it a draw. He frames it as a way to avoid public embarrassment, trying to mask a desperate exit strategy. Before they can bolt, the loud-mouthed brat throws a tantrum, screeching for them to rip off an arm. A sharp, freezing tone from the shadows silences the room, and everyone turns to face the source. When the kid tries to beg for some face to be saved, the offer gets slapped away instantly. Negotiation is off the table, and it's clear begging won't get them anywhere ever. The heavy hitter tries to pull rank, mentioning that his companion is the boss's son. His warning lands on deaf ears, as the returner is already mentally picking out weak points. Then a blur of kinetic energy erupts, closing the gap before anyone can blink. He launches a frame-perfect strike that turns a tense standoff into a frantic scramble for air. The sheer force sends shockwaves, leaving the entitled brat stumbling back with terror in his eyes. A quick hit like that has a funny way of deleting a man's arrogance. Looming over the crumpled figure, the reborn survivor delivers a cold truth about buzzing flies. His patience has officially expired, and he really doesn't have time for pests today. He hauls the whimpering prisoner up by his collar, ignoring the predictable threats about a powerful daddy. The rebuttal is short. Flies don't ask for clearance before they get swatted. Seeing their golden ticket tossed aside makes the cronies flee, leaving the brawler to finally snap. He lets out a primal roar, accusing his foe of being a smug bastard who just won't stop looking down on him. Fueled by sheer ego, the antagonist lunges forward in a blind, aggressive assault. He swings with enough raw force to punch through brick, determined to wipe that calm look off the returner's face. Our hero drops the dead weight, clearing his mind for the fight he's actually interested in. He settles into his stance, ready to treat this lethal challenge with the respect it deserves. Before Zhuo Tianchen can even blink, the overconfident blonde decides to test his patience. The blonde fighter, a hothead who hasn't realized he's already lost, lunges into a reckless flurry of strikes that barely stir the air. It is a textbook display of raw, untrained aggression, yet he somehow manages to land a heavy punch and a knee and an elbow in one desperate, suffocating combo. Not exactly a black belt performance. Each time their wrapped fists slam together, sparks dance in the dark like the prelude to a much bigger fire, illuminating the smirk just barely clinging to Zhuo Tianchen's lips. The reborn combatant isn't sweating, he isn't panicked, and he certainly isn't interested in trading blows like they're two schoolboys on a playground. With cool, clinical precision, he traces the shimmering lines of power etched into the hands of his opponent, finally spotting the telltale mark of the infection. It's almost cute how the guy thinks he's invincible, but once he realizes the secret, the entire dynamic of this fight shifts from a brawl to a funeral march for a career. The blonde brawler starts to unravel, his voice climbing into a panicked shriek as the hidden patterns on his skin begin to shift and mutate under the pressure. Our guy doesn't bat an eye, simply shifting his weight to deliver the kind of finishing blow that turns dreams of domination into a lifetime of regret. The impact sounds like a porcelain plate hitting a stone floor, leaving the other man screaming as his hands literally shatter under the sheer force of the collision. It is a gruesome, definitive end to a fight that never really had a chance once the truth about those mark-covered limbs hit the light. Standing over the broken mess of a martial artist, he offers a bored invitation to just walk away and live to fight another day in some other miserable alleyway. But the ego is a stubborn thing, and the downed fighter clawing his way back to his feet shows exactly why some people choose to die for nothing. Classic bad decision-making. Everything turns to a dull, throbbing red as the antagonist forces his own energy to overload, desperately trying to trigger his latent power before he dies on the cold, hard floor. The air starts to hum with a frantic, unearned intensity that makes it clear someone is about to turn themselves into a walking time bomb. Watching the amateur struggle to control the surging energy is like watching a toddler try to steer a runaway freight train with a plastic spoon. He knows the guy is completely ignoring the basic breathing techniques needed to survive this kind of strain, effectively punching his own ticket to oblivion. The dying man starts to cackle at the ceiling, high on the temporary rush of power that is currently liquefying his insides, completely blind to the fact that he's already a ghost. It's a sad, predictable performance, and our guy barely feels the need to step out of the blast radius. An ear-piercing scream tears through the room as the red energy he forced outward comes barreling back in, turning one of his eyes into a bloody, ruinous mess. This is the price of trying to skip the line in the evolution queue. Nature has a way of balancing the books, and interest rates are vertical. The remains of the man are swallowed up by a monstrous, shifting mutation as the path of his evolution goes completely off the rails, stripping away everything that made him even remotely human. As the creature howls in the dark, the reality of fallen deviance becomes terrifyingly clear for anyone unlucky enough to be standing nearby. He calmly tells the man in the green jacket to get moving and find somewhere safe to hide, because this isn't a squabble anymore, it's an extermination mission. The target has surged to a lethal level 2, and the kind of regeneration it's showing off is going to require a much higher caliber of violence to put down for good. The mutated beast lunges with a speed that defies its massive, hulking frame, but he slips past the blow with the effortless grace of someone who has memorized every frame of this fight in a different lifetime. Each movement is a calculated counter, turning the monster's own momentum into a weapon that cuts deeper than any blade. He loads his entire fist with enough red-glowing energy to set the air on fire, delivering a crushing blow that ripples outwards like a shockwave of absolute finality. The sheer force of the strike is enough to make the walls tremble in sympathy for whatever poor soul is on the receiving end. A cloud of suffocating dust swallows the alley, leaving the watchers at the window staring in disbelief as their supposed hero realizes he's dealing with a Tier 1 threat on his own terms. There's no more room for games now that the monster has fully arrived at the party, and it's about to find out exactly why you shouldn't pick a fight with the guy who already knows how it ends. That fatal mistake costs the beast its life, as Zhuo Tianchen prepares the final crushing blow. The brain-headed creature is finally cracking as its weird healing factor stalls. Zhuo Tianchen waits for the perfect opening to strike, as he knows exactly when the monster crumbles. He reads the monster's speed and intent perfectly. However, this guy isn't playing hero today, so he aggressively shouts at the bystanders to scramble away. Amidst the panic, Zhao Lin starts shrieking empty-headed threats as if he matters. The reborn survivor barely glances at the theatrics, stepping squarely into his former enemy's path. He cuts through the noise, reminding his target how many died for that man's selfishness in his last life. While the coward tries to bribe his way out, Li Wuyi jumps in, frantically begging him to stop. The peacemaker warns that killing such a high-profile figure invites a mountain of trouble. This threat sounds like a bedtime story to our veteran, who stares down the shaking coward with complete indifference. Without a flicker of hesitation, he snaps the man's neck with the casual ease of closing a book. He looks at his stunned companion and explains that leaving a loose end is the only real mistake here. They walk away from the silent corpse, leaving the chaos for everyone else to handle. For a man who has seen the end already, silence is the only way to stay sane. Back in a dark room, he sits on the bed, frustrated he missed the trail of a second elite threat. He tries his detection skill, but his radar only confirms a massive headache. He examines the viral markings crawling up his skin. It is finally time to force a power-up, he decides, so he can stop trailing and start leading his own evolution. Most people wait until the second tier to evolve, but that is just a recipe for mediocrity. He is rewriting the manual to build a powerhouse foundation instead. Since the natural clock is too slow, he pulls out a glowing, energy-soaked artifact. It is time to jumpstart to his cells before trouble knocks on his door again. Holding a jagged meteorite crystal, he prepares a nasty blood fusion method using his own veins. He knows the risks, but in this world, this is just a standard twos. Fusion is brutal, but for Zhuo Tianchen, the real nightmare is only just beginning. Zhuo Tianchen bolts upright, gasping as his waking nightmare finally hits the exit. His friends rush over, concern painted all over their faces, but he waves them off like he's just dodged a bullet he already heard coming. He turns his attention inward, checking the residual ache from his latest level-up grind. It was a brutal way to forge a new spot pattern, but as he flexes, the power humming under his skin proves the agony was worth it. Crimson energy erupts around his fists while he tests the force behind his current build. He barely recognizes his own strength, noting that one energy-soaked artifact effectively doubled his combat output in a single go. Talk about a solid return on investment. He tears into a nearby container, his eyes lighting up as they land on a stash of glowing meteorite fragments. It's like finding a winning lottery ticket in the middle of a literal hellscape. He's definitely going to spend it all in one spot. Then a hooded figure materializes from the shadows, making our guy jump out of his skin in total surprise. Luo Lancha stands there, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else than face-to-face with an unwanted ghost from her past. Before he can even blink, she pivots and sprints away, her supernatural speed whipping up clouds of debris. Not about to let a lead like that evaporate, he vaults over the rubble to give chase immediately. They tear through the city streets at an impossible pace, and the persistent runner makes him sweat just to keep her in view. Chasing a shadow made of pure adrenaline is exhausting, but it confirms exactly how much she's hiding. The familiar silhouette and the sharp click of heels against the pavement instantly give his former teacher away. He yells for her to stop, desperate to bridge the gap, but she is clearly committed to disappearing into thin air. She finally skids to a halt, turning to reveal the telltale mark of infection scarring her skin. Her eyes glow with a haunting, predatory red, brimming with the shame of being seen as something less than human. As the woman tries to drop her supplies and vanish again, the reborn warrior steps in to cut off her exit. He points out that she hasn't touched food in days, and starving herself is the fastest way to become just another body. He breaks down the ugly truth of her specific mutation, describing the black armor coating her body like a living second skin. It's an impenetrable defense, but it's a high-maintenance parasite she's clearly trying her best to ignore. Without a second thought, the man draws a knife and slices his own arm, offering the vital fuel she craves. She recoils in pure, unadulterated horror, refusing to accept that her future depends on something so primal. He drills the cold gravity of the situation into her, warning that this denial will eventually leave her helpless. She keeps screaming in refusal, trapped in a tug-of-war between her fading humanity and the monster the virus wants her to. Yet even amidst the bitter screams, a haunting memory of peace refuses to stop lingering. A blonde girl eats grapes while two boys laugh under a peaceful tree. Everything feels perfect before the world ends. a memory of better days. Li Wuye screams that he won't abandon the team to fight the Zhao family. Zhuo Tianchen shakes his head, knowing that bringing everyone along is basically a suicide pact. He's seen how this movie ends. He raises a hand to silence them, explaining that their group is just too large to move undetected. He tasks them with finding specific people later, leaving them confused while he preps to face the danger solo. The ultimate lone wolf move. Luo Xiaozu pulls up to a sedan stuffed with supplies that would make any scavenger cry. She tosses over a modified grenade, and our guy flashes a grin. He knows exactly who needs to be deleted. He plans to be back in a week at Longhua. He leaves his frantic friend to guard the crew, making sure the people who actually matter stay safe from the coming chaos. The car slides along misty and Hua mountain roads for a quick break. Duan Chiru asks from under her hood if her condition is hopeless, but he offers a calm, steady promise that they can manage the symptoms. He points toward the primeval forest, explaining that animal blood will serve as a dinner wine substitute for her hunger. Watching her sip creature blood from a glass is a total mood. High up in the brush, a purple-haired bandit peers through a gap as the car rolls into view. He nudges his smoking buddy, convinced they can easily mug these newcomers to solve their supply problem. The pair grumbles about the rat-like life they've been forced to lead lately. But once they see the target headed into the woods, their greed turns into pure, shaking terror. They know nobody returns from those trees. Deep in a clearing, she sits cross-legged, learning to command the ink patterns crawling across her skin. The reborn fighter guides her breathing, and she's already picking it up faster than he anticipated. A natural prodigy. She wonders if she'll lose control of her bloodthirst within the week. He assures her that hitting a higher stage will balance those internal energies for good. The camera catches those dark, grid-like scales pulsing as they gather toward her center. It functions like a living machine recalibrating its own engine, shifting from an infection into a total weapon. Suddenly, a sharp, pained groan rings out as she pushes her limit too hard. Our lead steps in to make her stop, noting that sprinting before you can even stand is a great way to snap in. Before she can break, Zhuo Tianchen shifts his focus to the horror lurking nearby. Gray-haired woman falters. Zhuo Tianchen grabs a tiger. He quips about human meals. The group smells something foul. They wonder if it's a bear or tiger. Our guy knows it's worse. The group spots a tent. Someone's alive out here, but our guy thinks it's too easy. The survivors thank the woman. She's a lifesaver, but our guy knows this is just the calm before the storm. Brothers complain about Guanghua. Zhuo Tianchen arrives with outsized tank. Brothers discuss Guanghua. Zhuo Tianchen sets his plans. He's seen this before. Before Zhuo Tianchen can execute his scheme, the camp's fragile peace starts to crumble. Survivors argue over food. Someone suggests eating tiger meat. Everyone looks horrified, typical. The survivors argue over food. Someone suggests eating tiger meat. Everyone looks horrified. Typical. Kinking steps in, pouring water. The others beam at her relief like she's a saint. How quaint. Zhuo Tiancheng looks like he can handle any danger. He's as calm as a leaf. Zhuo Tiancheng looks like he can handle any danger. He's as calm as a leaf. Two guys argue behind him. They don't know he's already seen this fight a dozen times. The team worries about being used as training tools. They forget Jean's past. Jean smokes and refuses to let them go. His plan was never about murder. Jean's cruelty doesn't go unnoticed, and Zhu is already on the move to settle the score. Zhu hears a fight brewing. He strides toward danger, calm as ever. A woman screams, eyes wide in terror. Zhu stops, she cries for mercy. Zhu tells her to run. She's like a rabbit frozen in headlights, though. Zhuo Tiancheng sees her fear. He raises fists, ready to unleash chaos. Girl screams, calling him a monster. Zhu just smirks, he loves it. Zhuo Tiancheng runs, blasts ring, debris flies, he thanks his lucky stars. He loves feeling projectiles whiz past. Zhuo adds more chaos to the mix. Amidst screams, Zhuo Tiancheng fights. Power feels like he's won a medal. Zhuo runs, leaving shock in his wake. The enemy checks their cloaks. Zhuo Tiancheng acts tough, but there's a sadness in his eyes to know that lingering exhaustion is about to be interrupted by a far more urgent reality. Zhuo Tiancheng awakens after 3 days in a car. A woman tells him. The woman explains Longhua City is dangerous. Zhuo Tiancheng must coagulate. Zhuo Tiancheng remains calm, as others fear the Azure Mountain gang tax. Zhuo Tiancheng remains calm as others fear the Azure Mountain gang tax. He tells them to scram now, like he's got better things to do than deal with them. The Red Jacket gang arrives to claim their turf. Zhuo Tiancheng's eyes gleam. Before their ego can settle, Zhuo Tianchen decides he's done waiting for them to start. Boss screams for backup, but Zhuo Tianchen ignores him. He's lived through this headache before. He obliterates every opponent in his path, scattering them like bowling pins. The terrified Red Jacket members tremble at his arrival. They have no clue what's coming. When the freezing gang hears the order to stay put, our guy just chuckles. Spoiler alert, they're doomed. He saunters forward with complete ease, smirking that 2 lifetimes aren't quite enough. As he lays out his future plans for the group, their faces reflect total bewilderment. He drops the news about the Zhao family bounty, leaving his stunned enemies speechless. That silence is just the calm before the Red Jacket gang's short-lived reckoning begins. The leader of the Red Jacket gang paces outside the Dai Hao Club, his face twisted as he gripes about the Zhao clan's ego. He is still stewing over his partner's recent death, oblivious that he's just a redundant gear in a machine far larger than himself. 3 bald enforcers from the Zhao family suddenly emerge, and they aren't the same soft targets from before. They've undergone a terrifying evolution, and at the sight of their sheer, overwhelming power, the red-jacketed leader looks like he's just seen a ghost. Meanwhile, at a hidden base, the blonde Zhaolin maintains a chilling, composed demeanor in his dark uniform. His subordinates hang on his every word, treating his low-voiced commands as if they were divine decree. He cuts through the gang leader's remaining bravado with one sharp reminder of who actually runs this district. Confronted by a real predator, the previously loud thug instantly shifts from aggressive to his master's obedient lapdog. When the man in the red jacket tries to plead for a shot at revenge, he is silenced by a single, icy stare. The young boss has bigger schemes in motion, and they involve zero time for petty, low-tier vendettas. Back in town, a high-reward poster is slapped onto the wall, painting Zhu Tianchen as the most sought-after man in the district. They are offering a permanent home for his head, which seems like a massive overreaction for one guy. The reborn warrior stands there critiquing the wanted poster like a bored art critic who hates the artist's style. His companion, Duan Churu, is far less amused, clearly fed up with him drawing unnecessary heat to their group. He chuckles at the crude sketch, but the party ends abruptly when a mob spots his face, screaming for justice. They genuinely believe he is the one who offed the prominent second young master. He shouts his innocence over the roar of the crowd, but these folks have already made up their minds. His partner just hangs back, already sighing as she prepares to follow him into yet another disaster. Elsewhere, the shirtless powerhouse Li Wuyi is having a field day, physically dismantling anyone foolish enough to step into his space. He doesn't even break a sweat, mostly just disappointed that his opponents are so incredibly fragile. The wanted man crashes into the spar with a precision kick that forces his rival to acknowledge some genuine growth. It is a dance of veterans, where every strike proves both have come a long way since the world fell silent. Leader Lin steps in to break the tension, clearly thrilled by the raw power his 2 best fighters are displaying. He is looking at the future of their tiny faction, and he likes exactly what he sees. The mood shifts instantly when dire news arrives, painting a picture of a trap being set at the central square. Rumors suggest the hero has already been captured and is moments away from a very public execution. On top of the death threat, people are whispering about some secret method he supposedly has to supercharge evolution. Now, he isn't just a target. He is the most valuable trophy in the entire wasteland. That spotlight brings its own set of dangers, and Luo Lancha knows exactly what's coming. Luo Lancha stares at the news, her heart hammering at the thought of their sanctuary. If people learn her friend holds the key to evolution, the streets will turn into a total bloodbath. Everyone loves a shortcut until they're the ones being hunted. The crowd begins to chant, confirming the target is Zhu Tianchen, while Li Wuyi prepares for a fight that looks strictly suicidal. She tosses a paper crane skyward, a desperate bat signal screaming for an immediate save. A mysterious guy drops from the sky in a flash, but it isn't the returner everyone is stressing over. He stares down his old friend, as if asking why they're making such a dramatic scene over a misunderstanding he clearly expected. Talk about overreacting. He wipes his brow and ditches the disguise, making it clear that hiding under their wing isn't on his calendar today. He didn't come to Longhua City to play house. He's got a world to fix. Leaning in, he warns his pal about 20 people waiting in the shadows with the precision of a guy who's been here before. Their faces prove the rumors have already turned him into a walking target. Opportunity knocks, and it's carrying a death warrant. Luo Zhu steps in with a sharp coldness, noting this entire spectacle is a calculated trap meant to flush him out. It's not just a rumor, it's a surgical strike to see if he's actually ready to play. Clever, but not clever enough. The returner dismisses the danger with a nonchalant shrug, ignoring the trap because these people have no clue who they're dealing with. He pivots to business, asking if there's any sign of the guy he asked them to find. Priorities. He listens to a briefing on how the local gangs are scrambling, confirming his last fight created a power vacuum now full of internal friction. He'll clear the path himself. Housekeeping is always such a chore. A chubby hamster named Shangbyo waddles into view as our hero tells the crew to sit back and watch the show. He doesn't need a squad for this, just his pet and some blessed silence. Don't touch the merchandise. He holds the hamster up, but the moment sours as they peer out the window to catch a glimpse of a real disaster. Some goon is putting a knife to the captive's throat, and the timing is absolutely abysmal. The weight of the situation hits him as he realizes he missed a crucial piece of the puzzle. This rare slip-up leaves him visibly annoyed. He closes his eyes, bracing for the flashback of how things spiraled out of control 1 minute ago. At the public plaza, the air is thick with the scent of blood and malice, as a mob prepares to end a life to avenge their fallen leader. The prisoner is gagged, left completely at the mercy of a heavy blade moving way too fast. At the final second, a white-haired youth streaks into view, smashing into the executioner's weapon with enough force to shatter the plaza's atmosphere. The blade stops cold, denied its mark by a savior who has zero patience for such melodrama. The hero stands like a statue between the victim and his would-be murderers, demanding to know who dared try such a public stunt on his watch. He isn't just saving a stranger, he's letting everyone know the rules just changed. Silence shatters as his patience runs dry, turning this warning shot into a brutal reality. Varsity-jacketed fighter lunges, slamming his bat into the fray with decade-old muscle memory. He's squaring off against a brawling thug brandishing a rusty machete, someone who clearly hasn't realized he's dancing with a man who has already watched this script play out in his nightmares. Talk about a bad matchup. The brute freezes as the icy truth hits. He's not fighting a punk, but a seasoned combatant. His crew hovers behind him, fingers itching for a trigger pull, but the leader knows better. One wrong move in this cramped hall and they're likely to ventilate their own feet. Self-preservation is a hell of a drug. Dread sweeps through the goons like a wildfire because picking a fight with an elite is a quick way to meet your maker. Amidst the chaos, the commander mashes an earpiece to his head, listening to frantic demands to protect the package. Apparently the walls can crumble, but the prize stays intact. Our lead aggressor doesn't even have a second to breathe, distracted by an incoming call confirming his worst-case scenario. He barks back at the receiver, totally missing his mark as the enemy shadow steps away. Tactical awareness, 0. White smoke blooms from the floor, turning the hall into a disorienting haze. The rescuer vanishes like a ghost, leaving his opponent to roar at the ceiling while his thugs fumble for a target already miles ahead. A classic disappearing act. He slips into a dark alley, only to be met by a ponytail-wearing companion looking ready to chew him out. She skips the pleasantries, noting their furry scout ran off and pointing him toward the real mission. Someone's in a bad mood. Lugged over his shoulder, the hooded Zhuo Tianchen feels every bumpy step of their escape. His partner keeps the pace, tossing out sharp barbs about the sloppy handoff that got them here. The heavy breathing of his carrier is the only map he needs. They slam to a dead halt as a fresh silhouette blocks the path, signaling this rescue mission just hit a paywall. These aren't low-rent street thugs. These are professional-grade threats. The local talent just got a major upgrade. A sharp-featured guy in deep red steps forward with the smug aura of a man cashing a massive bonus. Next to him, a colorful jersey wearer flashes a crooked grin, clearly savoring the sight of their prey walking right into the snare. These two love the spotlight. Counting the odds, our baseball-wielding hero quickly sizes up the hopeless math. He lets out a heavy sigh, wishing he'd brought something with a bit more reach than a piece of wood for this extraction. He's under-equipped for this level of misery. High above the bloodletting, two watchers observe from the safety of the roof. One is ice cold, while the other is bouncing on his toes, practically drooling as he prays for the signal to jump down and mop up the scraps. Some people just want to see the world burn. The stoic observer simply shakes his head, highlighting the invisible spiderweb of hostile forces sealing every exit in the sector. Even an all-out assault is useless when the entire block has become a concrete cage. No way out. They pivot, shifting their gaze toward recruiting a violent, ego-driven biker gang to do the dirty work. Why risk their own expensive threads when they can just stir up the heavy hitters and watch the fireworks? Smart, if a bit lazy. Back in the grime, the rescuer shoves his shivering ward toward some cover, shielding him with his own body. He tries for a confident promise of safety, but he's already doing the mental math on how hard they're about to get hit. Tough talk, slim chances. The prisoner finally cracks, his voice thick with pain as he tells them to back off. He outed himself as a target, railing against his captors as nothing more than puppets, and begging his saviors to quit dying for a man who is supposed to be alone. A bit dramatic for a rescue, but
Before Zhuo Tianchen can even catch his breath, he hits a snag of his own.
Zhuo Tianchen gets cornered in a tight alley by a loud blonde guy and a confused companion. They've clearly got the wrong person, oblivious that they're harassing the only guy who can save their hides in a few days. Talk about bad networking. Zhao Lin tries to de-escalate on a busy street by offering tea, aiming to keep things civilized. But Gao Fei instantly kills the vibe, yanking out his weapon to clarify that he treats faces like punching bags. A foreigner with an afro starts poking the beehive, intentionally goading the opposition until the tension snaps. The street turns into a chaotic scramble of limbs and yelling as everyone lunges at once. Swinging a heavy implement like he's aiming for the bleachers, the aggressive brawler starts clearing the zone. His allies are shouting warnings, but he's already too busy rearranging the local opposition's dental plans. That same Afro-sporting guy takes a solid hit, but just chuckles, ready to run it back. Seeing the sheer momentum against them, the other side decides to cut their losses and retreat. While the leader orders a chase through the fray, two hidden observers watch through binoculars. They've been tracking gang movements, and their latest intel on the power shift is a genuine game-changer. Surveying the city, they spot major outfits like the Scorpions and the North Sky on the march. They eventually corner Li Wuyi on the sidewalk, immediately pressing the expert for info on the Black Bandana Society. Two masked thugs ambush the legend, clearly thinking they've caught him napping. That was a mistake. He barely moves an inch to snatch their incoming punches out of thin air. His smile drops as he twists his grip, applying enough pressure to make their hands scream. Even without a word, he's showing them exactly how far out of their league they really are. One attacker breaks into a cold sweat, realizing this guy hits harder than any boss he's ever known. He tries to yank away, but that iron grip is a one-way ticket to broken bones. Standing over the two figures sprawled on the concrete, the veteran looks bored by the whole encounter. He mutters that these supposed elites are basically amateurs playing dress-up. The defeated pair grovels, begging for a bit of face so they can crawl away with some dignity left. The master ignores the plea, casually pinning one thug with his boot to show what their respect is worth. He leans down to lecture them on how real respect is earned, not given by a cheap mask. When he identifies himself as the terror of Maple Nest, their begging instantly turns into sheer terror. With his target broken, he snaps orders about their hidden partner and demands they warn their boss to leave his people alone. They agree with terrifying speed. Counting their lucky stars, they might actually walk away in one piece. Zhuo Tianchen knows better than to think this city's peace will last for long. Pavement shards fly as gangs sprint through the city like they're late for the worst event ever. Zhuo Tianchen tears through the chaos, weapon ready, marking off steps on a mental list he perfected 10 years ago. Talk about a walk in the park. The returner acts without a pause, grabbing Gao Fei and tossing him through the air like a discarded duffel bag. It's a textbook save, the kind of move our protagonist has practiced in his sleep since the last timeline. The kid flops onto the dirt, completely broken by the impossible odds mounting against him. He throws his hands up in a desperate play for surrender, while his protector fades into the dim corners to see how this disaster unfolds. A random thug with a blue cap starts slapping the captive around, clearly nursing a massive ego trip. Suddenly, Zhao Lin strides into the fray, ending the bullying with the calm authority of someone who actually owns the zip code. Standing amidst the rubble, the gang leader tries to recruit his new prisoner with promises of easy protection. Then Li Wuyi stalks into the light, unimpressed, and ready to remind these goons that the hierarchy of the evolved has changed. The atmosphere turns toxic as rival warlords posture over who gets to claim the loot. That newcomer's smirk says he's already counted the corpses, and his math is looking pretty lethal today. The faction boss ignores the shouting matches from his rivals, treating their threats like background noise from NPCs who haven't caught up to the plot. He keeps his eyes locked on the prize, hoping the guy shows enough sense to bite. Leaning in close, the predator triggers a psychic whisper to sell the boy on his grand plan. It's a classic sales pitch, but the target looks like he's just realized he's being signed up for a pyramid scheme. Gao Fei cycles through all the reasons he's usually the dead weight of the group, yet he refuses to bow to this bully. He isn't just hunting for a savior. He's looking for someone worth dying for, and this guy definitely fails the audition. The rejection shatters the leader's composure, and a heavy staff slams down, forcing the young man to scramble toward a nearby alley. He's running for his life again, proving why saying no in the apocalypse is a high-risk activity. Panic drives his feet through the labyrinthine streets, his heart aching for the friend he had to leave behind. He's already scanning for a way to fight back when a stranger steps out to block his escape route. Luo Xiao Zhu bursts onto the scene, blade drawn and eyes burning with a glare sharp enough to draw blood. She isn't interested in who is standing in her way, because she's coming for her teammate and the rest of you are just While Luo Xiao Zhu cuts a path through the carnage, someone else is reaching his limits. Second brother stares down a pitiful bowl of noodles, the only thing keeping him vertical while he checks a video call. Frustration radiates off him because he knows exactly what the Red Jacket Gang is doing to his world, and he is done watching from the sidelines. That irritation detonates when an agitated blonde man bursts in, shouting that the Zhao family has snatched Zhu Tianchen. There is no plan here, just a desperate pivot into a rescue mission that feels like a shortcut to the graveyard. Ignoring the cold meal, he snatches up his heavy weapon and sprints out. With his big brother gone, he decides protecting this one last benefactor is worth throwing his life onto the fire, disappearing into the streets like a man with nothing left to lose. The camera shifts to a massive, grime-streaked plaza where leader Lin looms over the crowd. While the local hotheads bicker over petty turf, it is obvious nobody here understands who actually holds the leash. He taps his cigarette and announces a new game, forcing these evolved humans to tear each other apart for a prize. It is a classic move from a guy who enjoys watching rats fight over crumbs, and the crowd doesn't realize they are contestants in his rigged show. Li Wuyi strolls into the mess, his sarcasm cutting through the stale air. He marks his arrival by calling out an old acquaintance, openly labeling him a spineless traitor to the cause everyone here supposedly serves. A nervous member of the Black Bandana Society lets out a name, but is instantly silenced by a masked man standing beside him. That tiny hint of identification creates a ripple of cold dread, proving that even among monsters, some secrets stay locked. The host dismisses the newcomers, claiming they are late to the party and have no claim to the spoils. Instead of backing down, his rivals plant their feet, showing that the power dynamic is already starting to wobble. They set the record straight. The young girl caught in this chaos was never the host's trophy. It is a satisfying moment of clarity that strips away his false authority, exposing that his control is thinner than a wet paper towel. The smile drops right off the host's face as he realizes his psychic influence is just bouncing off his rival like a rubber ball against a brick wall. He has been riding that trick for years, and now he is staring at a wall he cannot climb. He processes the sudden data, calculating that his opponent generates a field of nullification that deletes any ability within 5 meters. It is an absolute hard counter that turns a psychic powerhouse into just another guy who has to throw punches the old-fashioned way. Stalling for control, he pivots and issues a desperate rule that bans the strongest guy in the room from ever joining the fight. He is so terrified of a real challenge that he has to start writing his opponent out of the script. The crowd, failing to see they are being suckered, starts cheering for the very rule that keeps them from getting wrecked. They are so eager for a fair fight that they didn't even notice the host just stacked the deck in his favor. Behind that shark-like smirk, the host is laughing because he knows exactly how he played everyone. He has turned a potential slaughter into a controlled event where he remains the biggest fish in a very shallow pond. Various gang representatives nod, formally sealing the deal and agreeing to play by these new, crooked rules. The ink is dry on a contract that guarantees everyone fights for scraps while the puppet master watches from the balcony. With the rules set, the organizer calls for the first victim to step onto the stage, and a guy in a green vest lunges forward. He is clearly eager to prove himself, but he has no idea the entire arena is just a setup built for someone much smaller.
Before that green vest even makes contact, Zhu Tianchen is already dismantling the entire game.
Zhu Tianchen surveys the battle like a future map, picking his opening move. He signals his mental specialist to step forward as bait for the coming slaughter. The air chills as onlookers gossip about Li Wuyi's recent blur of movement. Our fighter stands statuesque, calmly waiting for his next victim to make a mistake. He scans the field as Hu Zai enters, hauling a massive sword into view. Everyone holds their breath to see who blinks first. The ground actually ripples under the sheer weight of that oversized junk heap. It's an effective way to broadcast a total lack of subtle taste. That heavy blade descends like a falling skyscraper, aiming to flatten the defender completely. It is a desperate collision of brute force against sheer, cold speed. Dust settles, revealing the challenger thwarted by his own comically heavy toy. The victor barely blinks, beckoning the next person to try their luck at dying. Bruce ignores all tactical advice, itching to prove he is the fastest guy here. He is convinced his raw pace can handle what the others could not. The arena turns into a blurred, high-speed meat grinder of clashing massive egos. Neither challenger can find an opening in this frantic display of kinetic energy. Watching from the sidelines, the mastermind notices his friend burning stamina way too fast. If he doesn't step in now, the entire strategy will just collapse. The leader calmly walks into the fray, ending the chatter with his sheer presence. He has been waiting years for this exact showdown to finally rewrite history. An invisible pulse ripples out as he activates his unique information-sharing ability. His allies are now extensions of his own brain, ready to end this. With his squad finally synced up, Hai Shu prepares to show them how lethal precision really is. The afro-haired ally slams his bat down, but Hai Shu catches it effortlessly. Just another afternoon punch-in for the guy. The crowd gasps, finally spotting the monster in their midst. The sunglasses-wearing fighter realizes his brute force is failing, so he draws two tactical knives. He grips the steel tight, knuckles turning white as he stares down his opponent. It's a desperate, prayer-like challenge from a man clearly out of his depth. The returner dismisses the blade work with a smirk, sensing his opponent is being micromanaged. He glares at a nearby building, calling out the hidden cowardice. He exposes the red-haired Li Wuyi, whose lackeys lurk just out of sight. A bit further away, the long-haired antagonist smirks, admitting he has his target pinned in this death trap. The reborn warrior explains he has been tracking them via mental surveillance the whole time. High above, a hidden sniper turns pale, realizing his secret spot is already compromised. Down on the ground, an elder tries to play peacemaker before things turn ugly. But the red-haired brawler sneers at diplomacy, intent on crushing the local syndicate at any cost. As war is declared, our guy realizes talking won't help. He lunges through the tension, grabbing his primary antagonist's wrist to bring the violence to a sudden halt. With practiced ease, the protagonist lands a heavy strike, putting the attacker flat on his back. He looms over the fallen man, warning him against getting touchy. The mastermind watches his plan crumble as his lackey gets tossed like a rag doll. He panics and signals the mob to swarm the lone fighter immediately. Watching the chaos, the nearby allies worry teacher Luo might lose her temper. The confused knife-wielder is still begging for a scrap, desperate to finish his one-on-one duel. He shouts about empty promises, trying to shame the mob into acting with some integrity. The long-haired boss just laughs, but the returner steps forward to take the heat. Just as the mob hesitates, he does the one thing that makes the air turn cold. He dares the entire lot to stop wasting time and attack him all at once. While Zhuo Tianchen waits for the massacre to begin, elsewhere, the balance of power shifts. A woman in a vibrant red outfit haggles over deathmatch rules, clearly checking nervously for rival gangs looking to snatch the hostages. She is trying to contain a literal powder keg, knowing well that control is a total myth in this hellhole. Suddenly gripped by a change of heart, Li Wuyi realizes playing it safe is for losers in an apocalypse. He coldly tells his allies to stay back, choosing to take on all 6 attackers solo while our red-clad contact begrudgingly accepts the madness. Stepping into the cold concrete arena, he finds himself ringed by 6 bloodthirsty shadows hunting for his head. It's a classic trap, but he navigates their tightening circle like he's playing against a computer on the easiest difficulty setting. He mentally breaks down their formation, instantly tagging the 3 heavies meant to pin him while the speed demons wait to strike. A punch flies at his face, but he drifts aside with the lazy grace of a man who's lived this Tuesday 10 times already. The air crackles as he weaves through the blur, snapping a clean hit right into the nearest thug's skull. Crimson spray paints the floor, and the group stalls for a split second, finally realizing their prey has way sharper teeth than advertised. He doesn't stop, launching off the dirt like a coiled spring to dodge a flurry of rib-cracking kicks. In midair, he lands a brutal flat palm strike, turning an opponent's knee joint into a very expensive medical bill. Even the best plans hit a snag when reality bites, and a jagged roundhouse kick finally thuds into his side. He wobbles, taking the full impact, yet keeps his boots glued to the grit because he isn't going anywhere today. The 3 brutes seize the window, slamming their combined weight down to force him onto his back. They're panting, complaining that his evasion is becoming a total headache, unaware they just handed him the exact leverage he needed. Watching from the sidelines, Leader Lin grows tired of this game and bellows at his goons to stop playing with their food. The returner lies in the dust, but he looks less like a victim and more like a guy about to ruin someone's entire year. He finally spots the trick behind their perfect synchronization, realizing the villain is using a mental link to puppet his men. It's like a cheap theater show, and he just found the strings. With the odds officially against him, he triggers the glowing red mark on his forehead, letting raw, suppressed energy tear through his muscles. The hostages watch with wide eyes, sensing the beatdown is about to turn into a one-sided cleanup crew. Whispers ripple through the crowd as the spectators recognize the legendary power he's unleashing. The boss can feel his authority slipping away, looking like a man who just brought a plastic spoon to a shark tank. He moves like a ghost now, reading the intent behind every swing before the muscle even twitches, dodging everything by a hair's breadth. Driven to panic, the leader screams for a synchronized charge because nothing else is even grazing him. The remaining fighters limp forward, desperate for one last, doomed effort. He clenches his fist in the center of the storm with a confident sneer, having waited for this pathetic, suicidal opening since the first bell. His arm starts to pulse with a terrifying, colored aura, leaving the onlookers and our frantic red-clad acquaintance speechless at the sudden spike in power. It's a display that doesn't just win a fight, it redefines who actually holds the leash in this room. He channels everything into one final, explosive straight punch that looks set to suck the oxygen right out of the building. It's not just a strike, it's a closing statement aimed squarely at the heart of their formation. Zhuo Tianchen is just getting warmed up, and the carnage is far from over. Zhuo Tianchen executes a lethal spinning kick, sending blood flying as he effortlessly drops the surrounding horde. Talk about a flawless opening move. Lucky? Sure, if luck is just skill wearing a disguised mask. His attackers stumble back, the reality of their defeat crushing their fragile egos. Their long-haired leader, looking like he lost an argument with a lawnmower, decides to call for backup. He is actually reaching out to his uncle to save his skin. Our protagonist steps into his path, blocking the exit with a grin that screams he has seen this movie before. The coward stares at him, realizing he is trapped by a man playing a game where he already knows every single turn. Zhuo Tianchen doesn't waste time, lashing out with a punch that shatters the guy's defenses and leaves him a bloody mess. It is a harsh lesson in reality. In this apocalypse, speed hits harder than any promise. An associate with an afro tries to interrupt, shouting with the confidence of someone who has no idea he is already out of his league. One well-placed strike drops him instantly, leaving him to rethink every life decision that brought him here. While the bruised man babbles about his family name, the ground begins to shift as the true threat arrives. Stepping into the light with the casual arrogance of a final boss, a new player enters the scene and renders the gang war irrelevant. Hu Feng strides toward the center, sneering at these so-called legends like they are nothing but dust. When he laughs at their titles, it is clear he thinks calling themselves dragons is the punchline of a very bad joke. A scarred subordinate moves in, begging the new commander for a bit of mercy on behalf of our guy. It is a brave, desperate plea, but the boss just tilts his head, wondering why anyone would throw away their life for a known traitor. The scarred man tries to bridge the gap with loyalty, but he is met with a cold, hollow silence that kills the conversation. The decree is absolute. The main player in this drama will be buried before the sun sets. The crowd, sensing the shift in the air, begins to chant with a terrifying, rhythmic intensity. They are starved for blood and loud enough to shake the very foundations of the courtyard. It is a lethal triangle of tension. The boss, his mediator, and our protagonist stand toe-to-toe while the mob loses its mind. You could cut the atmosphere with a dull blade, yet the returner looks like he is just settling in for lunch. A flicker of amusement passes through his opponent's eyes before he brusquely apologizes to the scarred man for the disruption. In a blurred burst of motion, he decides to stop wasting time and goes straight for the kill. The impact slams down like a wrecking ball, turning concrete into gravel and sending shockwaves through the circle. This isn't a fight anymore. It's a demonstration of pure, destructive power that makes the previous skirmishes look like child's play. Still steady, the man who knows the future acknowledges his rival's frightening pace with a nod. Hu Feng chuckles at the prospect of the coming bloodshed, finally ready to step off the sidelines and end this for. Before Hu Feng can even draw his blade, Zhuo Tianchen shifts his focus to the newcomers. Zhuo Tianchen remains motionless as the four dragons land with a heavy thud. He eyes the group's aggressive posturing with the boredom of a pro who knows exactly how this tantrum unfolds. The air thickens while Uncle Lee scans the room to gauge the threat levels. He studies the combatants, gradually realizing this quiet guy is far more dangerous than he looks. Talk about a major tactical error. When the mediator attempts a soft apology, he gets hit with a cold refusal. Our returner has spent a decade learning just how expensive those hollow words are. No deal. In a sudden shift, the leader pivots to smack an ally, the slap ringing out sharply across the rooftop. He aims to muffle his loud friend before the encounter spirals into a complete disaster. The force sends the younger fighter spinning like a top smashed by a truck. Everyone watching stops breathing, seeing instantly that the power dynamics here just took a total nosedive. With the mood shattered, the strategist decides that pushing his luck is a losing game. He pulls back the Black Bandana Society, leaving behind a grim promise that their next clash will be different. He's already calling his lawyer. Victory feels like the heavy silence that settles once the losers retreat. He stands alone, keeping watch as the rest surrender, proving once again that this was never really a fair match. The rules are simple, and he holds all the cards now that the challenge has fizzled out. With the crowd silenced, he claims the captives as his rightful prize without a word of protest. Talk about a successful shopping trip. He walks toward the bound pair, snapping his weapon through the air to cut their ropes with surgical precision. It serves as a sharp reminder of the lethal power he keeps hidden in his sleeves. Just as the exit opens up, Zhang Zhenyu steps into the frame to slam the door shut. His sudden presence turns the air heavy, bringing a sharp, suffocating spike of hostility with him. The masked calm finally slips when he recognizes his old tormentor standing in the light. He readies his weapon in a blur, knowing the night just got much longer than planned.
Before Zhuo Tianchen can strike, the battlefield shifts and the real hunt finally begins.
Zhuo Tianchen stands tall against the sky. That gray hair and cold, absolute calm make him look like a guy who's already survived the apocalypse once. He truly has. He ignores the crowd and flatly demands why Zhang Zhenyu is playing hero for those two kids. It's a bold question that leaves everyone around them looking completely baffled. The masked agitator claims he is only returning a past favor. Our guy remembers the script perfectly. This is the classic good guy act he's seen a dozen times before. When the talk stalls, he tells the protector he won't last long in this hell. Naturally, the masked fighter loses his cool and swings a metal pipe in frustration. The scrapper pulls out some nunchucks, clearly hoping fancy gear will bridge the power gap. It's cute seeing him try to spice up a scrap with gym bag staples. The weapon blurs through the air, but the veteran just eyes it with professional interest. He's already making a mental note to grab a pair for himself later. He dances through the flurry of strikes with the lazy grace of a seasoned pro. The other man looks stunned, realizing his toy is failing in a real fight. He tries to de-escalate once more, but the stubborn fighter ignores the lifeline completely. The guy just doubles down on his ego trip, swinging back with reckless, messy energy. Fed up, he lands a single, crushing blow that sends his opponent flying backwards. Even the kids look like they've just witnessed a total glitch in reality. In a weird twist, the fumbling loser manages to plant a punch firmly on his face. He didn't even bother to dodge. The guy's genuine confusion is absolutely priceless. He finishes the job with one last strike and tells his team to clear the trash. The brawl is over before it really starts, as expected. The crowd whispers in shock, failing to realize this was entirely by design. He ate that punch just to end the standoff faster. He is clearly in a rush. The defeated fighter tries to climb to his feet with shaky, pathetic pride. It's an empty gesture that only gets people killed in this unforgiving climate. He ignores the wreckage and stalks toward the children, reminding us he lives by balancing the books. He is finally playing the game that actually matters.
Zhuo Tianchen isn't interested in the noise, only the inevitable result of this standoff.
Long Ting digs his heels in, swearing to sacrifice everything for the two kids behind him. He is just shouting at a brick wall, oblivious that the man walking toward him has seen this exact tantrum play out before. Before the loudmouth can even blink, Zhuo Tianchen blurs forward with speed that makes physics look like a mere suggestion. A violent shockwave tears through the air, signaling the exact spot where a disaster is about to get a reality check. The impact lands with a sickening thud, launching the attacker skyward while a cry of raw regret echoes across the field. His previous life experience turns this fight into professional trash collection. The antagonist collapses into a pathetic heap while leader Lin steps in to survey the mess. Our guy stands by, cool as a winter morning, already finished with a task that barely broke a sweat. The silent commander barks orders at Li Wuyi to pack gear and clear out immediately. He doesn't miss a beat, openly gushing about how the Fist Emperor just hosted a masterclass in conflict resolution. The remaining rivals scramble to offer hollow apologies, finally realizing they picked the wrong fight. That man effectively erases them from his mind, just as Lin Kinkin finally makes her entrance. She steps forward to recruit the warrior for Maple Nest with a tempting offer. He politely shuts the door on that future, though, because his schedule is far too packed for her faction's needs. As the pair heads off, the leader offers a nod of respect to the man who dismantled his opposition. He watches them depart, quietly marking a mental tab to repay the favor for today's assist. Back on the open ground, the blonde kid moans about the boredom of waiting around. It turns out that playing the hero is a total drag when you would rather be literally anywhere else. The children bicker over whether they should have recognized the hero, until their tiny hamster waddles into the spotlight. A withering look from the veteran suggests the rodent is doing more heavy lifting than the entire group. The crew hashes out logistics for an upcoming trip to the Azure Mountain Gang to sort through a mountain of professional headaches. It is a suicide mission for most folks, but for them, it is just another Tuesday with extra paperwork. The boy mentions they are picking up a target that the mysterious teacher Luo is dying to meet. Even the purple-haired woman looks like she just saw a ghost upon hearing the news, and quite frankly, who can blame that shocking revelation lingering in the air? Li Wuyi approaches the threshold to find out. Li Wuyi knocks on a reinforced door, while Duan Churu waits nervously behind him. They recite a clunky code phrase about an emperor and a tiger to gain entry. Amateur, but necessary these days. Inside, Zhuo Tianchen slams a massive blade onto the table. The room goes deadly quiet instantly. When the duo admits they tracked him by scent, our guy isn't exactly thrilled. The tracker explains that leader Lin sent them to clear a path through Long Hua. He mentions the main group shifted to Huabei City, which explains why they brought the girl. The atmosphere turns ice cold when he warns them about the evolved human monsters ahead. The woman pales, realizing their so-called head start just crumbled into thin air. He takes control and announces he will personally whip them into survival shape. The tracker eagerly agrees to pass along secret breathing exercises to help the girl toughen up. He then fixes his gaze on the floor to call out Luo Lancia. She was faking sleep, but trying to fool a guy who lived through the apocalypse twice is a bold move. Zhang Zhenyu finally sits up from the sofa, admitting he recognized his leader all along. His heightened senses felt the undeniable aura of the man he was fated to follow. The loyalist hits his knees, pledging his service and life to his new brother. It is a heavy scene to watch, but his mentor keeps it grounded by telling him to stand. They hash out the meaning of brotherhood while the younger man struggles with his debt. The reborn veteran just waves off the talk, choosing to build bridges instead of counting favors. With a firm declaration, he welcomes the newcomer as kin, ignoring old-world social walls. The guy looks stunned, clearly not used to being treated like an actual human being. He instructs the others to keep training while he leads the teacher away. He tells them it is for a practice session, but he is hiding a much more urgent rescue. The duo stays behind, whispering about sneaking out to spy on their strange boss. She smacks him to keep quiet, not wanting to trigger the guy who just soloed an army. Out in the night, the truth comes out as he pulls back her sleeve. The black armor is spreading fast, and the terror in her eyes says the end is close. The rot taking hold, Zhuo Tianchen wastes no time shifting his focus to the shadows below. Zhuo Tianchen and Luo Zhu perch on a rooftop, scanning the street for the blood bank. Below, a carpet of infected bodies shuffles through the dark, failing to notice their observers, professional roof sitters. A white SUV suddenly tears through the stillness, howling like a banshee toward the building entrance. The driver clearly values raw chaos over stealth. Subtlety is dead, apparently. The vehicle drifts through the horde with pinpoint precision, turning the massive crowd into a confused mess of limbs. This draws the undead away from the main door, handing the pair on the roof the perfect opening. Tires scream as the driver leans out the window, unloading a handgun into the thick of the swarm. It is noisy, messy, and insanely effective. A very loud way to clear your traffic jam. With the entrance devolving into bedlam, the lead marks the spot and signals the team to move out. He knows this window of opportunity is smaller than a mouse hole, so he prepares to drop into the belly of the beast. Inside the lobby, a masked swordsman joins the fray, slicing through the remaining infected like loose paper. His sharpshooting partner provides a wall of bullets, clearing the interior with surgical speed. From the shadows, those previous spotters watch, calculating every move the intruders make to assess their threat. The newcomers have skill, but they have no clue they are being tracked by a man who has lived this timeline a dozen times. A tiny creature suddenly hops onto his shoulder, nearly blowing their cover in the damp, quiet dark. The little hamster looks sweet, but its eyes hold a terrifying amount of upgraded hardware. He peels back the fur to reveal a pulsing red star-like mark on his friend's belly. Whatever secret evolution is fueling this mutation is way beyond his pay grade, but it makes for a fantastic pocket-sized kill switch. The rescue squad pushes deep into a corridor where the air tastes like stale secrets. The leader keeps those blades ready, clearly sensing that the building itself is losing its grip on humanity. Everything stops when the swordsman raises a hand, instincts screaming that something is lurking just out of sight. The group holds their breath, waiting to see if they should press their luck or turn and run. The teammate standing guard grips their weapon, listening to the wet, violent sounds of a struggle echoing from the darkness. Silence in this world is always a warning, especially after a beatdown like that. The shadows finally part, revealing the hooded figure standing tall in the light. He is back in one piece, but the cold look in his eyes says whatever he just fought was only the pro. Before Zhuo Tianchen can catch his breath, the real nightmare begins to tear through. The mutated beast tears through the lines, turning steel into confetti. Zhuo Tianchen dives in, his baton flashing as he balances the weight of past mistakes against this desperate fight. The creature's chest pulsates with red energy until a bulbous growth finally bursts under the barrage of gunfire and heavy impacts. Luo Zhu drags his partner back, keeping his voice steady as he notes that this tight hallway is nothing but a death trap. He isn't just reacting to the nearby chaos. His ears are tuned to the low, grinding vibrations of a much larger predator closing in. Suddenly, the wall behind the group explodes into a cloud of concrete dust and jagged debris. A towering monster forces its way through the gap, sending the squad scrambling for an exit. They're running on pure instinct, completely unaware that being hunted is only the tip of the iceberg. From the shadows, the stoic observer watches their frantic retreat, silently critiquing their surprisingly tight coordination. Even without evolution, they move with a panicked rhythm that would force any seasoned soldier to take notice. A survivor screams for the others to sprint as the high-level threat looms. Recognizing the infected energy pulsing from the beast, he knows leaving it alive is a death sentence for the entire city. He draws his blade, determined to end this mess before things spiral totally out of control. It's like swatting a fly with a sledgehammer. While the others scatter like marbles on a hardwood floor, the swordsman walks calmly toward the roar. He's treating this high-level monster not like a god-tier threat, but like a chore he's done a dozen times already on a Tuesday morning. The infected monster lets out a shriek that would freeze a normal person in their tracks. Ignoring the sound, the veteran hunter triggers his internal scanning systems and launches himself skyward. He's turned into a single, lethal blur of intent. He slices through the air with terrifying speed, leaving the panicked shouting of his companions far behind. The distance between him and the monster vanishes in a heartbeat, making those frantic warnings sound like nothing more than faint background noise. A single silver flash bisects the behemoth, slicing through bone and muscle with clinical, soul-crushing efficiency. The beast falls to the floor before it even realizes it's dead, leaving the witnesses staring in petrified silence at the clean, perfect cut. The stunned survivors finally realize their rescuer is an evolved powerhouse, not just some guy with a sharp stick. He offers a sharp warning before turning back to the dark interior. There are bigger, deadlier things still hiding in the corridors ahead. He tells them to clear out while they still have the chance, vanishing back into the shadows with his companion. Left behind in a daze, the group debates whether to keep running or go find someone else to provide a distraction. Stepping through a door shredded like a giant meat grinder, he surveys the grisly wake of the carnage. Blood coats the walls in a grim, splatter-painted warning that something truly monstrous tore through this place. And it wasn't just a simple struggle for survival.
Whatever left this ruin behind is far from finished, and Zhuo Tianchen knows it.
Zhuo Tianchen breaks down exactly how the blood-brain monster turns living people into walking, shriveled puppets. He's making sure Luo Lancha knows they are walking into a meat grinder, not a picnic. He calls over his hamster-like scout to inspect the mangled door frame. He knows the monster failed to kick this in, so he's ready to do the heavy lifting. The returner winds up and unleashes a blast of pure force into the barricade. The wall atomizes in a shower of debris as he clears the way ahead. He stands in the settling dust, silhouetted like he's posing for a recruitment poster. He's walking into a boss room he's cleared out in a dozen previous lives. The duo steps into a freezer kept cold by a fortunate gas leak. Our guy notes the blood bags are still fresh enough to be useful. The room is deathly quiet until the tiny scout lets out a squeak of terror. He instantly kills his movement and monitors the ceiling for any unwanted hostiles. He spots a pile of spoiled, brown blood bags and starts smashing them like he's crushing cheap glass. He's cleaning house so this garbage doesn't go to waste on anyone else. His companion looks on, confused as to why he's painting the floors with spoiled viscera. He just keeps scrubbing the area, completely unfazed by the mess. They freeze, ears strained to catch even a whisper of movement from the ventilation ducts. The tension is thick enough to cut with a dull knife. A wet, fleshy tongue snakes down from the darkness, dripping with toxic slime. The monster thinks it is hunting, but it has no idea who walked inside. The beast lunges out of the gloom, but the veteran is already waiting. When his ally shouts a panicked warning, He just wears a knowing, bored smirk. He catches the slimy tentacle in his iron grip before it can even twitch. The monster's strike was a total flop. His foreknowledge is a cheat. Zhuo Tianchen isn't just settling for a block. He's ready to tear this nightmare apart. Zhuo Tianchen lunges at the skull-faced horror, snatching its tongue out of midair like a common pest. The monster recoils as if it just touched a live wire. He doesn't hesitate, winding up for a crushing blow into the creature's exposed skull. It's a masterclass in efficiency, proving this beast is just a glorified punching bag. A massive sword follows, shattering that rotting frame into harmless scraps of trash. The steel reflects a hunger for more fights like this one. Peace returns to the hall, but a quick search reveals no rare crystals. Our guy just shrugs and loads up on standard medical supplies instead. Duan Churu hovers nearby, clearly worried about lingering where high-level threats prowl. He tells her it is time to bounce before the dinner bell rings. Suddenly, heavy boots echo as a red-haired woman leading a band of survivors appears. Leader Lin scans their loot with eyes that scream trouble. The air thickens when her nervous subordinates recognize the man mopping the floor with the local wildlife. They clearly weren't expecting such a heavy hitter. Watching his allies snap into action is a total treat, and the armored girl quickly brings her defensive barriers online. She is finally handling her own weight. Guns are drawn, but our guy barely glances at the barrels pointed his way. He just shifts a box of supplies, bored by the predictable start of a standoff. The boss of this party steps forward, ordering her men to stand down before things get messy. She looks like she would rather be absolutely anywhere else. She pivots to thank him for saving her scouts earlier, naturally angling for a cut of the blood packs. A classic move in this miserable world. She makes an emotional plea for resources, offering rare gear to strike a deal. He pauses. Making friends is safer than just relying on lead and the weight of his hesitation hangs in the air, shifting the terms of their fragile alliance. Sister Ling shakes her head. The price is too high, but she can't say no, not yet. The moment the group steps away, the tension in the room snaps. The leader of the opposing group loses her cool and lashes out with a sharp, stinging strike to keep her mouthy subordinate in line. She knows that their survival hangs by a thread, and she cannot afford any mistakes while dealing with someone who clearly looms over them like a titan. Standing alone in the gray, suffocating quiet of the ruins, the stressed-out group leader lets out a long, weary sigh as the weight of being outclassed finally settles in. She is smart enough to realize that the man she just traded away her supplies to is operating on a completely different level of power than anyone else left breathing in these streets. Back behind closed doors, he spreads out the loot with Luo Zio Zhu, his eyes lighting up as he points out the 5 hard-won meteor crystals tucked away in the hall. He skips the small talk and demands she get moving on her training, because in a world this lethal, resting for even an hour is a luxury nobody can afford. He breaks down the ugly truth of the evolution process, explaining that moving to the second stage demands a mountain of 50 high-grade crystals just to break the threshold. Watching the color drain from her face is almost funny, but the gravity of the stakes makes it hard to even crack a smile. The conversation takes a sharp turn into the nightmare fuel when he mentions that the final evolution requires a physical fusion with a literal piece of the meteor. She practically freezes in terror, clearly flashes of her own traumatic change back into a monster, playing out behind her eyes as she stares at him. She drops her defenses for just a second, admitting that these grand ambitions for absolute power never mattered to her compared to just having a quiet, normal life. It is the kind of honesty that hits hard, especially since we know that in this apocalypse, that dream is the one thing she is likely never going to touch again. He leaves her to start her training, but the peace doesn't last long before a frantic rustling pulls him right back into the room. He finds his chaotic little bear-like creature acting like a total vacuum, ready to inhale a precious crystal like it's just another piece of kibble. He screams and dives to intercept the snack, but he is already far too late to stop the furry menace from gulping it down in one satisfying, greedy swallow. The little guy lets out a contented burp that feels like a deliberate insult, completely unfazed by the fact that he just ate a fortune in resources. He pauses, noticing the glowing, mysterious mark that has suddenly appeared on the back of his gluttonous pet, and realizes this might be the perfect, accidental lab rat for his theories. Instead of anger, his mind instantly shifts to cold, calculating curiosity. He decides it is high time to see exactly how much this creature can actually handle. He holds out a much higher-tier crystal, daring the beast to stay hungry, and it doesn't even hesitate before reaching out to snatch it away. It's becoming less of a pet and more of a bottomless pit with fur, but he's already too invested in this experiment to stop now. With the final piece of the third-level supply sitting in his palm, he contemplates the sheer rarity of what he is witnessing as the creature keeps begging for more. He is officially all in, gambling his resources on the evolution of a hamster that has absolutely zero chill and a massive appetite for destruction. Zhuo Tianchen knows this gamble is a ticking time bomb, even for a seasoned veteran like him. Zhuo Tianchen hovers over his pink, bear-like pet, carefully weighing a meteorite crystal. He's held back by the memory of how much stress the little fuzzball can handle. It's like feeding a toddler a ghost pepper, knowing exactly when to stop before things get explosive. After a gas-fueled burp that definitely wasn't dignified, the creature passes out cold. It's hard to predict that this adorable snack machine will become a total neighborhood nightmare later. For tonight, he just watches it sleep off a very caloric lunch. Exhaustion wins, so our guy slumps against a crate to grab a few hours. The sun begins to paint the horizon, unaware that the city streets are about to turn into a complete dumpster fire. Inside the room, Luo Xiao Zhu marks the end of her ritual amidst pieces of her broken gear. Energy ripples from the red crystal embedded in her skin. She has officially regained a level of strength that should be impossible for anyone else. She calls out weakly, her voice cutting through the silence to find her leader. He pivots with the fluid motion of a man who practices his landings in the mirror. He gives a quick nod, silently impressed by her progress. She confirms her black armor is finally drawing power correctly, with her bloodlust successfully chained up for the next 10 days. He tells her to grab their hibernating pet, genuinely baffled that eating 5 crystals didn't vaporize the thing. Then he glances at the window, his expression shifting from calm to bracing for a total disaster. The streets below aren't just busy, they are suffocated by a literal ocean of rotting flesh. A massive horde has materialized out of thin air while they were busy finishing chores. They stare down at the living sea that has turned their exit into a death trap. Plans for a detour to Longhua City start forming, though he sighs at the thought of how much harder high-grade fuel will be to find now. He tells her not to sweat it. She is safe with his group, after all. With a flick of his wrist, he launches a line and sticks the landing on a distant balcony like he's bored. She catches up and hands over the pet, which has clearly been hitting the gym during its nap. It lets out a squeak that sounded less like a cry for help and more like a taunt. He tosses the supercharged meatball onto the line, and it zips toward the next building like a fuzzy cannonball. That evolution was a total success, and apparently the pet is even faster than they are. He squares his gear, feeling the gravity of the situation. It's time to stop standing around. He takes a breath and prepares to follow the little guy into the void. Stepping out into the unknown reveals that Su Zhao has far wilder problems ahead. Su Zhao maps out an escape on this rooftop, but Luo Xiao Zhu is already imagining the team getting buried under a mountain of teeth. The team debates their next move, but our guy isn't worried at all. He's seen this movie before, though he notices Shang Baio is missing. Zhang Zhenyu and Duan Churu bolt through the halls, chasing after their lost pet while dodging the undead. Talk about a weird game of fetch. They hit the stairs and stop cold when the air turns thick with the metallic scent of fresh blood. Something is hunting in these shadows. Prying the door open, they find a nightmare of shredded, frozen corpses. The reborn survivor just stares in silence, finally realizing just how much power their friend has. He doesn't need to guess what happened, since he remembers how these monsters climb the biological ladder. It's evolution, but way bloodier. Tucked in the corner of this graveyard, a strange mass starts to pulse. It looks like it's breathing, and the weary leader braces for a fight. The mass shifts, and out pops a bizarre bear-hamster hybrid with glowing red eyes. Surprise, it's the pet they were looking for. Instead of turning feral, the little guy lets out a tiny squeak, instantly killing the dread in the room. Guess snacking on zombies is a great way to level up. He looks at the bodies and gets a devious grin. Why run away when you can turn this place into a high-tier loot farm? The duo decides to park here and go on a shopping spree for rare crystals. The zombies don't even know they're just walking loot crates. That peaceful looting session is about to be shattered by a nightmare he remembers all too well. He whips out the guarded items, dropping them like they're burning hot. Everyone panics at the sight of the wedding-dressed monstrosities, but the reborn returner has saved them all yet again. A lone survivor spots the purple-skinned, muscle-bound terrors, but his blind gunfire only succeeds in drawing their lethal gaze. He realizes too late that these aren't the garden-variety zombies he's used to, and the fear etched into his face is earned. Desperation takes hold as the group abandons their gear, sprinting for the car like their lives depend on it. The driver cranks the engine with white-knuckled intensity, but it stutters and dies, turning their getaway vehicle into an instant, claustrophobic casket. A mature infected smashes through the glass, its face twisting into a bloody grin that marks the start of a horrific harvest. Screams erupt inside the trapped car, but the surrounding mob is already closing in to ensure no one slips away. As the sounds of feasting fade into a hollow, haunting silence, a tiny pink rodent emerges from the shadows. Its eyes flicker with the glowing intensity of crystals as it lets out a calculated squeak, signaling something far worse lurks nearby. The little puffball launches itself with the force of a cannonball, piercing the skull of a mature infected before the monster can even register a threat. This masterpiece of lethal efficiency leaves behind only a piercing shriek from the target. Moving with enough speed to create air-rippling shockwaves, the creature dances around the lumbering predators like they are statues in a park. It's clearly having the time of its life, turning a desperate survival situation into a personal speedrun victory lap. Zhuo Tianchen watches his companion explain how these monsters use a natural, invisible cloak to stay undetected. He realizes he has been underestimating the tactical value of his own pet, which is essentially a living, high-stakes assassin with a very cute face. Staring over the ruined city, he confirms they have cleared 3 massive waves, though no Stage 3 targets have shown their hide yet. He brushes off his allies' concerns about the encroaching darkness, knowing well that the most dangerous evolution only comes out to play at night. Suddenly, the fuzzy companion dashes ahead, waiting in the shadows with an impatient attitude that suggests it has tracked something special. He wastes no time, immediately giving chase to see what his furry little radar has dug up in this wreckage. The camera pushes into a suffocating pit where the air is thick with raw, predatory hostility. A set of hate-filled eyes locks onto the lens, followed by a blue-skinned monstrosity with razor-sharp shark teeth that clearly isn't here for a friendly chat. A wide shot reveals a tense standoff between the bulky blue alpha and a leaner, spike-backed nightmare. The surrounding pack of lesser infected keeps a respectful distance, while these 2 heavyweights roar their intent to tear each other apart for the crown. From a safe vantage point, he identifies the duo as rare third-stage mutations, noting their speed and steel-tearing power. It's the kind of high-level intel that feels like Christmas morning, assuming you like your presents wrapped in biohazardous, terrifying flesh. He quickly calculates the massive profit from the meteorite crystals that will remain after this territorial throwdown ends in carnage. He even reaches out to pet the fuzzy assassin, genuinely impressed that this creature is infinitely more reliable than the dead weight he used to know. The silence breaks as the blue beast with the shark-like teeth lunges forward, crashing into its rival with the force of a wrecking ball. The lean, red-bodied nightmare reciprocates by extending its lethal arm blades, beginning a fight to the finish that neither is going to survive. Yet the carnage is only just beginning, as these terrors prepare to tear each other apart. 2 hulking infected elites face off, their deafening roars vibrating through the heavy, ozone-scented air. They are locked in a primal, lethal standoff that reeks of imminent carnage. They collide like crashing mountain ranges, sending dark, viscous blood splattering across the ruined pavement. Each strike from their clawed limbs scars the earth and promises total destruction. Zhang Zhenyu watches the slaughter from a distance, calmly mapping out the deadly volatility for Luo Xiaozu. He isn't worried. He already knows exactly how this bloody story ends. The red-masked giant finds its rhythm, proving just why it reached this level of deformity. It fights with the cold, calculated patience of a house winning against desperate gamblers. A secondary wave of lesser infected surges forward, drawn by the scent of pure violence. The winner of this duel laughs, causing the surrounding horde to shrink back in fear. The swarm begins to cannibalize its own ranks, creating a chaotic opening our guy needs. He tells his support member to mop up the rabble for a clean harvest. The victor stands over the crushed rival, puffing out its chest in a sickening display. It thinks it's the king, but the real apex predator is just checking his watch. 3 smaller targets scramble toward their hiding spot, sensing an easy snack. To someone with a decade of survival experience, these things aren't monsters, they're walking loot drops. Shang Bio transforms into a blur of fur and fangs, annihilating the incoming trio instantly. Who knew a tiny, adorable pet could be such an efficient, high-speed assassin? While his companion handles the small fry, the Fist Emperor launches into the air. He aims an eviction notice at the giant's head that will definitely require structural repairs. Thunderous impacts echo as human power beats the Titan into the cracked concrete floor. Within seconds, the former apex predator is reduced to a pathetic, shivering punching bag. He delivers a final, surgical strike, shattering the creature's skull like a fragile egg. Plucking the level 4 meteorite crystal from the gore feels like a quick vending machine purchase. The Titan finally stops twitching in the dirt as the support member steps forward today. She refuses to be a burden any longer, finally ready to get her hands dirty. A lone straggler tries to mount a surprise ambush from the blind spot, unfortunately. A quick flash of a blade cuts the threat in two. Talk about bad timing. The victor nods at his finished work, while the team member secures the perimeter area. Nothing builds professional chemistry quite like looting the corpse of a fallen tyrant. The haul includes the rare crystal and 2 extra cores for their next evolution grind. Even the hamster seems to approve, letting out a satisfied squeak as they can. That temporary peace is about to be shattered as the real work begins. Suryu Xuan checks in on the progress, but the guy just laughs. With a level up confirmed, he sits bathed in red energy, greedily absorbing the crystal while his partner nervously clutches her toy. Sensors ping a massive zombie migration, and he doesn't waste a heartbeat before launching into the air. His teammate realizes the danger, but knows he's already mapped out this disaster 10 years ago. Meanwhile, Gao Fei is deep in the trenches, his scythe growing heavy as the horde keeps coming. The poor guy screams that the swarm is endless, and his morale is snapping like a cheap twig. The ground suddenly bucks as a gargantuan foot slams down, instantly killing the local noise. The panicked defender stares up at a nightmare he's never seen before. Clearly, the apocalypse isn't reading from the manual today. 2 blue-skinned behemoths emerge from the gloom, their glowing eyes fixed on the scattering survivors. Their deafening roar signals that the dinner bell has finally rung. The lesser infected suddenly freeze, leaving the group behind Luo Lancha and second brother in stunned silence. When the mindless masses go quiet, you know the real boss has finally logged in. In a sickening display, the nearby corpses tear themselves apart to evolve into purple-skinned, muscle-bound monsters. One teammate screams for them to retreat, realizing they are significantly out of their depth. Even with a frantic order to flee ringing in his ears, the impulsive warrior refuses to yield. He charges headfirst into the slaughter, invoking his spirit weapon to show he isn't going down without a fight. He swings his bareheaded mallet with enough force to send the mutants flying like discarded ragdolls. This swing buys his team the briefest of windows to regroup, provided they don't trip over their own feet. A streak of red and black flashes through the sky, delivering a flaming kick to the boss. Our guy doesn't even break a sweat, mocking the monster that had everyone else terrified a moment ago. He follows up with a stomp so heavy it craters the earth beneath the giant's feet. The creature flops over, proving that having a decade of experience really is the ultimate cheat code. With the big threats out of the way, he rallies the survivors into a counteroffensive. He turns a potential suicide mission into a cleanup job, and honestly, he barely looks winded. After the carnage, he tosses out high-value crystals to the crew, already planning their next move. The talk soon shifts to local politics, confirming the living are usually bigger headaches than the dead. Back home, a mysterious woman in a mask emerges from the shadows to drop a name drop about a secret society. The Master of Foreknowledge just listens, already calculating how this fits into the grander.
And that's where chapter 140 leaves us. The alliance shifts, the pieces are moving, and Zhuo Tianchen is just getting started.